Open world games are some of the most fun single-player games you can play, but that's only if they're done right. A good story, an immersive world, and gameplay that doesn't suck. All of these things are needed to really make you want to explore that open world and complete the game at your own pace. And I was surprised to find out that Outcast: A New Beginning has managed to strike that perfect balance. Released on March 15th to PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, the game is currently sitting at a very positive rating on Steam and had been on my radar for one of those games this year to get my hands on and dive into, and I really think you should too. Now, I do quickly want to say thank you to Outcast for sponsoring this video, so although this is a hashtag ad, I'm going to be real with all y'all. This is a game that I was planning to play on my own time. Games that I typically like to play by myself are open world and story-heavy adventures. Now, I know I'm dating myself here, but this goes back with me to the very first one I played with Morrowind back in the early 2000s, so I was going to be playing Outcast whether I was sponsored or not, and so I'm really happy to be able to make a video on it since this game really brings me back to the old school RPG open world games that I grew up playing. So with that being said, let's jump in and find out why Outcast is worth your time.
You're joining my quest then?
Well, that depends. Are you taking no for an answer?
Sounds like a yes!
The game itself is based on the original Outcast released in 1999 as the very first 3D open world RPG. And if you're a fan of that one and you've been waiting 20 years to play the next one, you'll probably be familiar with your playable character, ex-Navy SEAL Cutter Slade, as well as the world of Adelpha and its alien inhabitants, the Talon. But you don't have to have any knowledge of the original game in order to enjoy the new one. And over the course of a very story-heavy tutorial, you learn that Slade has been somehow chosen to help the Talon save their homeland from human invaders dead set on harvesting the planet of its resources. The best part, however, is that this game doesn't take itself too seriously, and that's a very good thing.
The firstborn Galenta in thousands of cycles.
Oh my god! I'm gonna have a baby!
There's constant quips and jokes and even references to the original Outcast game suggesting that Slade has actually done all of this before.
I solve puzzles. We did it together once, but you probably don't remember.
That's right, I don't.
It's funny, it's engaging, but where the story really got me was that this game is more than just a random alien species and their homeworld being harvested by humans. That's a story we've all heard before. Well, Adelpha is incredibly immersive, and developers have made this world all very believable. From their own language with a handy glossary that you can bring up during the mini conversations you'll have in order to double check the meanings of words, to the physical terrain and world you're playing in, no amount of detail here feels overlooked. For example, the main town you start off in is called Emia, and it feels like a pretty standard alien jungle town, but there's actually so much depth to it. Emia has an economy based on fruit that has to be harvested way up in the treetops, and because of this, society actually now considers those who are high up off the ground to be poor, while the elite are the ones who are dirty from being able to always walk on the ground without worrying about physical labor.
So the lower class is at the top, and you have to work your ass off to the bottom to access the upper society. Weird logic. Where I'm from, the top is prime real estate.
Only the less fortunate Talons live in the treetops. The young ones dream of climbing down the ladder of our society, just like I did.
These are the types of interactions that prevent me from fast clicking through dialogue, and instead I'm able to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show as I play through the game and learn about this world. But even with this example, I'm really just scratching the surface here. The city of Procreana is more of a research and intellectual hub with a massive library and museum built into the cliffs, while Beta has become known for the best drinks due to their pure water. And Sapa? It's a small fishing village with ocean-influenced architecture, and the Talon there had to learn how to tame flying animals in order to help them catch fish. Adelpha as a whole is actually run by a matriarchal elite that lives off completely sheltered from the general populace, and the male and female Talons don't even interact with each other aside from a mating ceremony once a year. This world the game is set in and the story you're playing through makes you want to learn more, and I find myself constantly wandering around and chatting with the villagers instead of trying to just rush and complete the main story quest as soon as possible. I genuinely want to learn more about the characters, from hilarious conversations with Doc to the bumbling elders like the librarian. Interacting with these NPCs is actually really enjoyable, and even more so since Cutter Slade is such a well-designed character himself.
Are you guys also selling water?
Selling water? You mean in a moor?
Who would be stupid enough to buy bottled water?
You got a point there. But don't discard the idea just yet. It's a potential gold mine.
No spoilers here, but you'll learn about his past leading up to why he's on Adelpha, all the while enjoying his sarcasm and dry sense of humor. And as I said earlier, Outcast really doesn't take itself too seriously, and because of that, you're able to just enjoy it. But this story, the world, the characters, all of that work wouldn't really matter if the gameplay itself was boring. Well, in Outcast, you'll have a variety of different quests, from collecting items to escorting creatures and even destroying human bases. The movement is incredibly well done, and after a few minutes getting used to these controls, using the jetpack is really second nature. It feels very fluid, and I enjoy both fighting and flying and moving around the world. Although you can travel throughout the map by activating and using diokas, which are essentially portals, much of the time I did just find myself zooming around or gliding with this jetpack. This also helps me wander off and run to side missions and optional objectives that help make Slade more powerful. As you progress through the game, you'll collect blue helidium, which will allow you to unlock jetpack skills, while fighting robots and clearing human bases will reward you with nanocells, which help you unlock and upgrade your combat or weapon skills, giving you the ability to customize your own progression. You can unlock weapon slots to install modules that give you certain effects like increased headshot damage, reduce your overall weapon heating, or even fire tracking bullets or small explosive mines. I really like how weapon and combat choices are designed, and at one point I actually find myself exploring in order to upgrade my rifle to prioritize quick DPS while I actually installed healing modules on my pistol. This would allow me to quickly swap to my sidearm to finish off the enemy if I needed some quick health without having to really worry about wasting consumables. It's a very cool way to make combat unique to each and every player, and I'd be surprised if any two people had the same weapon and combat skills selected at any given time. Your jetpack and combat skills combined with weapon modules makes for very fun and intuitive fighting. The alien creatures are usually not too much of a threat unless you run into the massive herds of them, but some of the larger robot drill bases were surprisingly challenging. One evening, I actually spent a good 30 minutes or so of my play session just going around doing side quests and farming resources for potions in order to prep myself for one of these bases. And not only was I able to get some good progression skills out of it, those potions actually ended up saving me. And since I had spent so much time upgrading my jetpack, when I did run into my first mining drill, it was actually relatively straightforward since I had that cool ability to hover. At every point, the game really makes it feel like I'm being rewarded for doing those side quests and the optional upgrades, and that is just a good feeling. This is where Outcast really shines. You can genuinely do whatever you want in whatever order. The tutorial and intro sequence does keep you on rails for the most part, and I was a bit confused why I couldn't just explore the world like I thought you should, but I'm actually really thankful the devs did the tutorial this way. By hand-holding you in the beginning, you are then able to focus on the story that gets you hooked in order to enjoy the world for the rest of the game. When I was finally released into Adelpha, I wandered and began completing side quests and these main quests as I wanted, and it all felt very natural and never like I was missing something. I will say I was a bit surprised to find out that the very first main questline that I did complete was something that very few people had actually done. Only 18% of players had completed the Procreana storyline, which I chose first, and I actually got that achievement before I even destroyed my first base, which, as you can see, almost half of all players had already done. But what's even better is that my gameplay experience actually improved for completing that Procreana storyline early. I had to tame some alien bees called ASRock in order to help defend the city, and if I wanted to, I could have just done the main checks and then moved on to the next place. But after doing it, I thought it was kind of cool, so I collected a bunch more larvae, I lured all the queens back, and as I progressed through these quests, the city itself began to visibly change. ASRock nests started showing up on the buildings, and it was a very cool way to visibly see my progression and how I was affecting the city. When the hive had grown large enough and were eventually tamed, I was given the ability to call down my own personal swarm to attack enemies. This is just one of the many abilities that you can unlock as you complete the main storylines, and whereas I chose to do Procreana first, maybe you want to do Amiya or Beta, or maybe you go fishing in Sapa first and you just love that place and you complete it 100%. It's really all up to you, and your game will have its own unique progression because of it. I've already put over 8 hours into this game, but if I'm being honest, I've really only completed one main story objective, and this freedom to choose what you want to do and where you want to do it shows that the devs really do understand open world games and what makes them fun. The inventory system in Outcast is also really clever. Ammo is either green helidium for your pistol or red Helidium for your rifle, and these, as well as the nanocells you need for the upgrades, are automatically all siphoned up whenever you're near them. Even after big fights, I never really felt like I was scraping for ammo, which makes combat more enjoyable, and I can just focus on playing the game. If you want to increase your bag space, you don't have to buy a new and bigger bag, but instead it's all done through upgrades that you can buy at an upgrader in the various cities. Still, I've never really felt like I needed these max unlocks in order to finish the story. It has just made adventuring easier. And that's really the main theme of the game. It's built for you to succeed as a player. Whenever you open the map, you can see your quest objectives as well as side objectives, which have the rewards right there for you to see, as well as if you're missing certain upgrades in order to complete them. Now, while some of these you really can't do without having the skills, others you can get by, but it is quite difficult. Either way, it's an incredibly user-friendly system, and not only kind of gives me an idea of what I should get next for my skills, but also gives me a nice challenge as I'm wandering around the map. And something that I think is incredibly important, especially when it comes to RPGs, but is often overlooked, is the quest tracking and maintenance system for what you need to complete to finish the story. It's very easy to look into the menu and see not only what quests you have to do, but maybe where exactly you need to go in order to complete the next step. Tracking is very easy. You can see all of the potential quests that you can unlock, so you can kind of decide if you want to spend your time here or maybe go elsewhere. And the map also gives you notices whenever you have a kind of mission critical quest that you should be doing sooner rather than later. I'm a dad of 2 toddlers, so unfortunately I find myself constantly quitting out of games at random moments, so this quest log, the tracking system, the user-friendly map, the very friendly autosave feature, it all made it feel like I was never forgetting something when I jumped back in, but also like I wasn't going to miss out due to a play session that had to end early for some time with the kiddos. At the end of the day, Outcast was sold as an open world RPG, and they really nailed it. The story is one that you want to play and will find yourself happily listening to the dialogue and watching cutscenes while wandering off to do side quests without ever feeling like you're wasting time. The HUD and menu UI is intuitive and very helpful, the combat is rewarding and challenging, and not only can you feel like your character is progressing through the story as you complete it, but you see the world change around you as well. If it's been a while since you've set aside some time to really jump into a story and enjoy a game, I strongly recommend Outcast: A New Beginning. But what do you guys think? Is this reminding you of old school RPGs as well? Are you interested in learning about the world of Adelpha for the first time? Or maybe you're one of the players who've been waiting 25 years to jump back in? Let me know down in the comments below, since I've been pleasantly surprised during my time in game, and I cannot wait to see how the story ends. But no more spoilers, I have a bunch of other cities to visit, so that's it for me. Until next time, peace.